Okay, and here we go. We're off and running here. This is Market Knowledge, and my guest today, super excited about this one. He is the owner, CEO of the gym, which I think there's 5 locations now, owner of an international fitness events company, and CFO Invent Medical, a medical device company, and just an all-around serial entrepreneur and great guy. George Jackson is here. Hey, George, how are you?
Great, Bob. Thank you for having me on. And, it's been fun being able to work with you on projects already. You are really instrumental in our new growth and helping us get our Chula Vista location, and also helping Invent Medical, find ways to expand our space. And, we look forward to working with you on that. And, that's super exciting too. So I'm fortunate to be able to spend a lot of time with you working on the expansion of our business. And I really appreciate that.
Well, it's my pleasure. It's been great. And your story, I'm going to, typically I take about 20, 30 minutes to do these things, George, but your story is so incredible. I might need a little extra time because you have done some amazing things. And, I want to start kind of going way back. As you indicated, we spent some time together, but one thing I don't think I ever really asked you about was, I know you were a really great tennis player, athlete, going to USC. I think professional surfer might've been part of what you were doing too at one point. And so how do you go from great athlete to entrepreneur in the gym business? How does that come about?
I think mostly experience, right? I think, it's interesting. I think all of us, you have an amazing background too, just, being as a news anchor and now in the real estate business, right? And I think it's relationships that you build along the way, right? And that is a huge part of success, in my opinion. I think getting to know people well and then working well together, leads you in different paths. So my path was early on, as somebody who was always an athlete and wanting to be better. And so that led me to the weight room, right? So at a young age, I started training hard and heavier as I got older. And that ended up leading me to Gold's Gym, right? In Venice. And as a CPA, I met the owners of Gold's Gym, and I started helping them with their business. And that got me involved heavily in the fitness business. And it's built my core, the way I run businesses, at least my fitness business since then, right? Being exposed to the growth of Gold's Gym, World's Gym, and now my own brand, TG The Gym. All that base of knowledge is built up and given me the kind of the past view of what it is to where we are now. And it's definitely helped me in all the business decisions I make.
So I want to stay on that for a second, because that's super interesting. Especially nowadays, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, or they think they're entrepreneurs. They've got a great idea, but going from great idea to the execution of that idea to a really profitable operation is a big step. How do you go from being a CPA and kind of helping the gyms to starting your own gym, making that big step?
When I look at business, and I know you're the same, Bob. You've been on great teams in your life. You've played football at a very high level in college, and you're on a team of real estate people that are very successful, right? And for me, it's definitely not me, right? It's the team. It's the people that you put on your team that could sustain success, right? Because if it was just up to me, only me, we would have failed a long, long time ago. I make a lot of mistakes every day, and you need a team behind you that, that complements you and can make you successful, right? Because you're not a success on an island by yourself. That's for sure, right?
Yeah, yeah. So did you have a mentor or a partner along the way or initially that really helped you learn to do what you're doing?
I wish I did, right? Because I
Yeah,
probably would have saved a lot of agony and defeat and failure, but I didn't. And so I had to learn the hard way. We made lots of mistakes. I was just fortunate. My very first partner is a gentleman by the name of Rick Stevenson. And uh, for 37 years, I mean, we've hit it out of the park for every single year, every single day, only because of the team that he built, right? I mean, I've owned lots of other gyms, but my main gym that I've always owned is the gym in San Diego in Pacific Beach. And for 37 years, it's never had a bad day, only because Rick doesn't allow it to have a bad day. And his team is the same way. I mean, Rick's been there 37 years. The rest of his team, on average, has been there over 30. To me, that's the Chicago Bulls plus 20 or 30 years, right? I mean, as you know,
yeah,
in business, I mean, to be successful every day, man, it's an everyday grind.
yeah,
People
yeah.
don't want to talk about that, right? But it's every day waking up at 5 a.m. and working your butt off for till 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And in Rick's case, he raised 5 boys, in between all of that, right? So that's somebody really, really knows what he's doing every day.
Yeah, George, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody, right? I mean,
No,
it's you eat what you kill. It's an everyday
yeah.
grind. It's scary, a lot of the times. How have you survived in this entrepreneurship, owning your own business 40 plus years? Is there something that you can kind of point to? And maybe it's a daily habit. Maybe it's just your mindset. Is there something that you can point to kind of help other people realize, what it takes?
At least I can just speak for myself, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's resilience, right? Just that this is what I wanted to do when I knew that it was something I could do. So as early as, maybe my late teens or early 20s, having the knowledge that I wanted to have my own business, but then having the resilience to make it work, right? No matter what. So no matter how bad it was, I was going to be resilient to get through it. And then the second thing for me is being magnanimous, which for me means being gentle and kind, but also being the best leader I can be, and for a greater cause. I mean, fitness business for me was a greater cause. Making people healthy, and having them have a place to exercise every day that had great equipment and a great environment. That's a greater cause. At Invent Medical, we're saving people's lives with a medical device, and always having a greater cause for me has been something that drives me.
That's great. And you mentioned this a little bit and kind of resonates with me is, the past failures are just really lessons, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you said you didn't have a mentor per se, but so you kind of had to kind of pay your dues. And believe me, I've paid a lot of dues in my time as well. All my, let's just call them lessons. All my lessons have been tough over the years. But really, that's how you get to where you are, right?
Yeah. You'll appreciate this because this deals a lot with real estate. So our first PB gym was an existing gym that went out of business. The landlord wasn't getting rent. We were able to get the landlord to believe in us and for a premium rent. So you'll get a kick out of this. But so in 1985, 86, we rented a building in PB that was 5,000 square feet, and because the landlord's previous tenant was a gym and it went out of business and he wasn't getting rent, so he charged us $1 a foot back then. So it's $5,000 a month in 1986, right? But we didn't know any different, right? I mean, I was 25 years old. It's $5,000 a month. All right, we'll make it work, right?
Let's go.
And and we did. But then we grew fast. We did great. So we wanted to open our second gym, but it was a there was nothing in it, right? So as you know, Bob, I didn't know anything, right? I wasn't an architect. I wasn't a contractor. I signed the lease without even knowing that I needed building plans, right? So a friend of ours was a contractor, and he starts like building the locker room and stuff. We don't even have permits. One day the city guy comes by and goes, "What the hell are you guys doing?" We're like, "We're building a gym." It's like, well, no, wait, hold on. You guys need some building permits. You got to get. So we had to. So total failure, right? So then we had to we're already like building the gym. We already had equipment in there, and now we're getting shut down because we don't really have the right permits to do what we were doing, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Talk about learning the hard way, right?
Well, I know, right? But that's how you do it. You'll never make those mistakes again, right?
Yeah. Well, the great news for that is we found this. A friend of mine was an architect at USC, and we've had this relationship for 30 years. He's built all our gyms, but in 1987, I had no idea I had to do all that stuff.
Right. Yeah. Part of it is finding the right people, the right partners, the right contacts, and you kind of get those along the way. I want to bring up something on real estate because you had mentioned something to me that's really stuck with me for months now. And it was, and I'm not going to say it exactly correct, but it was something to the effect of, you're telling me this. I love my businesses and they're doing great, but I'm really acquiring or gaining wealth through real estate. And I want you to expand on that a little bit.
It's funny because, the gym business, unfortunately, because I've been in it for, 30, almost 40 years now. When I got into it, an average membership for an average club was $50 a month. Now it's $10. So,
Yeah.
The costs have gone up, as you know, from a real estate perspective, but the pricing model for us, like the pricing or the value propositions changed totally for me. Equipment prices gone up, the cost to build a gym's gone up, except our prices have all gone down, right? So what I've learned over the years is, as I've seen the price pressure go down, but real estate prices have gone up. So if I could buy real estate at a good value and have a sustainable business, my business value maybe it's not going up as fast as the real estate values are. And so fortunately, I learned that in the 90s, and we've been able to acquire properties, over that period where it made sense, right? Because as you know, if I buy a property at too high of a value, then it doesn't make sense either, because then maybe my mortgage payment is more than I would pay for a lease. So The good news for me is I figured out a long time ago that if I could get my mortgage payment way lower than I could lease it, it's a win-win, right? I'm going to make more money in my business, and the value of my real estate's always going to be increasing, as it has for the last 35 years. And so then I'm returning my investment doublefold, right? Because I'm paying less of a lease. Now I have a sustained advantage over my competition, and my property values are going up.
Yeah, no, that's great. And, a lot of people have used that formula to acquire wealth and real estate, but running their business out of it and doing it again and really kind of repeating that model. The building in PB, it's really like an iconic San Diego place, I think. I mean, I've been driving by there. I'm a native, and so for 40 years, I remember going by that building. Do people come up to you all the time and say, "Oh, I know that place"? Everybody knows that gym.
Yeah, the good news for me is I try not to be the face of my organization, only because I don't work at those gyms day in and day out. So most people don't even know I own it, which is good, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
But when somebody like yourself does, yeah, for sure. I mean, in my little world of serious fitness, that gym's probably one of the most iconic gyms in the world. I mean, people from all over the world come there to work out. I mean, and that makes us really excited, right? And we know we have a special environment because we've created it over the last 36 years. I mean, there's, you work out, Bob. I mean, if you went into that gym, there's no way you can't get excited to lift a little heavier or train a little harder. That's what happens when you walk in there. You just walk in there and go, okay, now I know I got to get serious. Well, let me go drop the phone back off on my car because it's time to work out hard today.
Right. So, excuse me. And that's your model, right? For your gyms is the I don't know if do I say the hardcore workout person? 100%. Is that right to say? Yeah. I mean, someone who's really into it, they're going to go and lift some big weights and build their body up.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to get into the Invent Medical too, but first, before we do that, how are things? We got to talk about the pandemic a little bit because I want to get your perspective on it. You've got your fitness, the events model that you do as well, and then your gyms. Are things getting back to somewhat of a normal yet? Or I know we're not in the right tier probably, but even that's beginning to be hard for just the regular person to follow. How is it going now? I know you're still growing because you've opened up a new gym, but how are things just on that landscape now?
I think for my community, it's essential for them to exercise and train hard every day. So we have been fortunate that we've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost $1 million in outdoor gyms. So we have been open the whole time, making sure that our community has a place to train. And so, for that bold move, we've been very rewarded. I mean, our gyms are doing amazing. So, but we had to invest a lot of money for that to happen. So, as you know, in Chula Vista, we built a large outdoor gym out there. In PB, we built a permanent outdoor gym at our PB gym. In Vista, we have looks like a football field. We put down turf, and we have a huge outdoor gym there. Victorville, we didn't do that. We just stayed inside because it was just too hot outside, and Apple Valley the same way. And I guess for me personally, just because I do work for Invent Medical, and I know probably I feel sometimes maybe at least a little bit too much, or maybe more than I think I know. But I just truly believe from the day that the pandemic hit that governments overreacted by locking down and shutting down. And I always believe that as a small business owner, we're always going to put our customers first, and we'll figure out a way to keep them safe. And I know we did that with all our members, and I feel excited about that by providing them outdoor gyms. We found out early that there was no transmission outside, and so we kept our gyms open the whole time and never closed.
Do you think? Well, let's say, are there going to be any long-term things that you'll do? Well, for example, when things get back to normal, are you going to continue to have a much bigger outside workout area? Are there some long-standing effects to the pandemic that you'll continue to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's the fortunate thing with owning our own properties, right? So, like, especially in PB, I mean, we spent crazy amounts of money making our outdoor gyms permanent, right?
Yeah,
Vista,
right.
even though we own our property, our parking lot, as you know, is a common area. Even though we built the area in the parking lot, we'd love to keep that outdoor area permanent, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So, where we could, since we owned our properties, make our outdoor areas permanent, we did. So.
Yeah, and so that will continue, right? There'll be an outside area as things get back.
For me, it's been great, right? Because now we permanently have outdoor workouts, and they're awesome, right? So now you always have your choice. So it's like, today, do I want to work outside, or do I want to work out inside? So
well, and we're in San Diego, right? Where else can you do that? Maybe there's a couple places in California, but that's it. You can't go work out in the summertime in Florida or Texas. I mean, it's kind of an amazing feature that you have now.
Yeah, no, that's what happens when tough things come about. And, that's what's fun about being a small business owner. And even if we were larger, I probably would have been the same way, but we're just very nimble, right? We got together as a group and a great team, and great teams solve problems, right? I mean, on a football field or a basketball court, the great teams will figure out a way to win. And I think that's what we did as a team during this pandemic. We figured out a way to win. Yeah.
Well, and how does being a CPA helped you over the years? And did you make a conscious decision? I don't know if that was something that you had all along, is that accounting background, or did you decide this is important, I'm going to go back and become a CPA?
But that's probably the only little mentoring experience I ever had in my life. So, when I was at USC, you know, I I had to work as a longshoreman to pay for school, right? So my perspective in school was I got to get the most out of this because I'm working 8 at night to 4 in the morning, getting to school at 10, and I realized because I was paying for school, it was costing me, like $40 an hour to be sitting in that room, right? And I'm getting paid $30 an hour. I'm like, gosh, it's costing me more to sit in this room than I'm making, right? So um, my goal was always to have my own business once I was in business school at USC. So just long story short, I'm in a marketing class because I thought marketing was the way that I needed to learn marketing if I was ever going to sustain a business, right?
Yeah.
And some guy from Kraft Foods happened to be giving a lecture in our marketing class saying, hey, did you know that accounting is the language of business? And if you were smart, you would change your major to accounting right now so that you could learn how to raise money for the business you want to own one day. Because a marketing guy pitching a financial guy to give him money is going to lose over a CPA who has more depth of knowledge pitching him money any day of the week. And so that's how I got to be a CPA. I just said, hey, you know what? Worst case is if I fail as a businessman, I could always be a CPA and do somebody else's books.
Right. Well, and I bet you think about that now is probably the best thing you ever did.
Oh, by far. And that was the greatest advice I ever had, right? I mean, because if I would have just stayed a marketing major, I would have never had the background I have in producing financial statements, doing tax returns, learning the whole financial landscape of how do I put the projections together to get a lender to have confidence that I could achieve them, right?
Yeah, just learning that whole language of business, and which is a good segue to what you're doing now as well, which is the Invent Medical. Tell me a little bit more about. I know. Let's tell everybody a little bit more about it, and I also want to know how you got into it initially. Again, for a lot of entrepreneurs, the confidence of taking the step into getting into what I assume is a little bit of a different business for you, going into the medical device industry, and just taking that step, even though you've got 40 years of business background, and it's a little bit different, but taking that initial step into a new venture, how did that all come about?
And I think it starts at the start of our conversation, right? It's about relationships and people, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what life's about, right? I mean, I'm fortunate to have friendship with you, and that's resulted in me getting another location in Chula Vista. So that's just so excellent. But I met my partner Sam, 20 some years ago, just helping a business that he was working for, giving them some advice on getting financing. So that's how Sam and I met over 20 years ago. And Sam was the inventor of that product too. And so when I met him, I was just like, gosh, this guy is extraordinary. I got to figure out a way to partner up with him one day. So that's kind of, it's just the long relationship of knowing somebody for a long time. And then in 2014, he finally said to me, I was grateful that he's the one who called me and said, hey, George, I need somebody like you to help me with the accounting and business aspects of this business I want to start. And as we had a small investment to start, and I put in money, he put in more money, and for the next from 2014 to 2018, Tim and I were the sole people that brought in the money, right, in terms of keeping us going. Then we got a small investment from an outside investor in 2018, and now we're on the cusp of producing our first units and selling our first product. But that's a long time, right? I mean, as an entrepreneur, one of the things I've learned is if you really want to be sustainable, you need other income sources, right? So I obviously had my gyms, but 6 years, without a paycheck at Invent Medical for me, right?
and that's important, and that's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit, because there's none of these overnight. This is what's happening, and it's just taking place over the past 6 months. I mean, this is relationships, deep relationships, and then, like you said, 5-6 years of work in progress along the way.
Yeah, and I think for me, the thing I've learned over my life of owning businesses, some like a gym, it needs to be successful from day one, right? For a company like this is developing a product, it's going to take a long time to get to that success point, mainly because there's hurdles, right? The big hurdle with Invent Medical is our government, right? So we need government approval of our product before we can even sell one of them. And I can tell you from 6 years of experience, getting FDA approval on a medical device is not for the faint of heart. It's very difficult.
but it's going well, right? And the product, and I'm not going to describe it as well as you, but it's a respiratory type of ventilator.
Yeah, it's a little bit. So it's called high flow therapy. So we, Invent Medical, are a high flow therapy company. All the devices we produce, the first device we have on the market right now that got government approval in October of last year under the emergency use authorization to treat COVID patients. So what it does is provide needed oxygen to people that are suffering from respiratory issues. So like for COVID, for example, the initial thought was that if you got severe COVID, you needed to be put on a ventilator immediately. Unfortunately, because COVID was a virus that we'd never seen before, we made some mistakes, right? So the initial people that got COVID and got thrown in a ventilator real quick died. 90% of them that got put on a ventilator died. The reality was that they needed oxygen support, their lungs weren't damaged. So most of the time when you get put on a ventilator, your lungs are damaged. The COVID patients, their SpO2 dropped significantly, and protocol before COVID was if they're not able to breathe, put them on a ventilator. But what we learned was they needed oxygen before. I mean, in severe cases, to keep somebody alive, a ventilator is the way to do it. But in COVID, you first want to try to get them to breathe on their own better, which is what our machine does. So it provides high flow oxygen to help the lungs clear out, and so that they can breathe on their own better.
Fantastic. And what stage are you in that FDA? It sounds like things are really kind of on the upswing for the company.
Yeah, so we're in the process of producing 1,000 units right now. We've just signed all kinds of different agreements to get our product into the market, and it's the whole ramp-up stage. It's crazy, right? Because you spend 6 years developing your product, and we've developed 6 products right now. Even though it's difficult for us, because we can put 6 products on the market today, but the FDA will make us stage that rollout. So one of the things that's, being not in this industry, I learned, which just seems crazy to me, is that for us to get FDA approval, we have to use a predicate device. So that means a device that's already on the market, right? So that means you can't innovate so much to start. Like our first machine is going to be our lowest generation machine, because we have to use existing products on the market to be similar to theirs to get approved. So now that we're approved, at least now we can use our device to bring our product to where it should be, which is innovative and market changing.
Fantastic. How San Diego is has been, but even more and more, life sciences are getting so big here in we're number 4 market for life sciences globally. Medical device is a huge industry for San Diego, especially Carlsbad, where you're located. Is being in that kind of environment in San Diego helpful for the company? I'm sure that it is, but
it's huge. I mean, going all the way back to Puritan Bennett, I mean, some of the greatest minds in the respiratory device business live right here in Carlsbad. We've been so fortunate to tap into that talent. I mean, and from your relationship with Pat Miles and Alpha Tech, that whole spine business. There's just so much talent that just lives here, and we have the same benefit, right? That we have all these respiratory people with so much experience that live either in Orange County or here in San Diego, and that's helped us a ton because when you're a startup company, you can't just hire people full time. Most of these guys are these great engineers that we have. They make $200,000-$300,000 a year, right? But we've been able to hire them as consultants and pay them a good amount of money per hour, but just been able to add talent as we need it so we can keep progressing.
Yeah, that's great. All goes back to what you started with, which is the relationships and even going deep on those relationships and good things can happen. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to work, but so lastly, I've been watching a lot of other people and asking a lot of questions on kind of what they do on a daily basis. Highly successful people, what kind of habits they have, and kind of whether it be meditation, a morning walk, something that they think about every day. Is there one thing that a tip that you would give to either a younger person or not a younger person who might be just struggling right now and trying to figure out what they're going to do next? Is there something that you do every day to kind of keep your vision straight?
Yeah, every day it's been at least 37 years. So I usually get up about 6 or 5:30, and that's when I spend my time in my faith. My faith in God is huge, and so I open the Bible and I have a set pattern of how I go through the Bible, but I take verses and then I write on them. So I take a verse and then I just kind of just meditate on it and see how that's going to affect the way I do things and see things. And that's something that I start off with every day, and I have for probably 37 years now.
Great. Well, George, you're a legend. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you being with me today.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it, and I look forward to working with you to expand our footprint here in Carlsbad with Invent Medical. And you've been a great help so far, Bob. And it's just a great pleasure dealing with you. For the people that are watching this, I could just tell you from personal experience, there's nobody that I've ever dealt with that is as great as you are and what you do, Bob. And I really, really appreciate it.
Wow, George, I can't thank you enough for saying that. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun as we start ramping up the new projects for Invent Medical.
Great. Thank you, Bob. And I look forward to seeing you.
I appreciate it, George. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.